Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Unstoppable Mindset Podcast. Today, I have a very, very special guest on, a longtime friend of mine. He has been a fitness coach. He is a lifestyle and business coach now. He's done so many different things. He has a published book. You name it in the fitness world, he knows what he's doing. You now name it in the mindset world, and he's mixed both all together. My good friend, my longtime friend, a very close friend of mine, Glenn Hattem. What's up, brother?
What's happening, my brother? Hello to everybody else out there. Good to be with you.
I am so glad that you're on here. Finally, it feels like it's been a long time coming to be able to have you on here.
We've both been on a unique journey.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah. I can't wait till we get into that. We can talk about when I first met you.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's give people a little background about how we know each other. So Glenn, when I first met him, I was, like 10, 12 years old, something like that. And at the time, Glenn, you were doing fitness training and all this other stuff. And I mean, you still look obviously your body almost looks the exact same. You've been chiseled ever since I've known you. And I met Glenn because he was a fitness model for my parents' company at the time.
That's right. By accident.
By accident. And it has been, since then we just kind of like hit it off. We just chatted and got to know each other. And since then you've just been a part of my life. I mean, really through a relationship with my parents. And we've become very, very.
Yeah, your mom actually took this picture on the cover of one of my books.
Yes.
This is the one with the baby oil. This is when I showed up that day with a bunch of models, and your mom's like, "No, you take your shirt off and rub down." And I think I had to do a interesting shoot with Aaron at the time, doing some modeling, and we're actually having to do a recording for, I think, these spin bikes here, folks, where they produce this incredible kind of like a cross line between commercial and that crappy home stuff that was typically out there at the time. Yep. You guys were kind of ahead of the curve, and but I think we were using one of those teleprompters, and everyone was picking on me because they kept speeding up the teleprompter and I couldn't say my name right when I was doing the intro.
Glenn Hattem, and you're just like, it's like, no, Glenn, your name's Hattem. Let's go ahead and let's run that.
It was something like that. So.
Yeah, but since then, we've known each other for now going on almost 2 decades. I mean, we're right there at like the 2 decade mark, which is crazy to think about. We've known each other for almost 20 years. And honestly, you've been someone who for a very long time I've looked up to. You've always been an incredibly driven individual. And we've both had very, very unique journeys. You've been along my journey as an athlete, whether it was high school, whether it was college. We've stayed connected through all of it. And then obviously with your business endeavors, with your book that you just showed, Get It Back, which is an amazing one.
It's amazing how that all mixed over. I mean, I was pretty much, Keegan, I was hanging out with your brother Kyle, your sister, your mom. Your mom became like my big sister. Yep. I went to her for advice.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, long story short, you've just been a part of really my family for an incredibly long time. And I'm incredibly grateful for the relationship that we have. And recently, and I say recently because we've known each other for like 20 years. You've trained me, right? And then in some ways I've trained you a little bit. Really, I think a really good place to probably dive into some of this stuff. And one of the big reasons why I wanted to have you on here is you've had a transformation of your own going into kind of the coaching and mindset space. So you were in fitness for a long time. What were some of the changes that started to happen in your world that made you start to lean towards what you do now?
Everybody always wants that crazy, like pivotal moment story, but I feel like it's more the way it really went down as I bumped into the next thing. And yeah, there were some spikes, some moments where some of the things I was doing, I either got discontent with, burnt out on, or just really felt like in order to be giving from a full heart and a full expression of myself, I was contained too much. And that started for me from the get-go. When I came into the personal trainer world, I positioned myself as a fitness expert. And then, in order to get great results with my clients, I was a fitness and nutrition expert. And in order to get even better results, I was a fitness, nutrition, lifestyle expert. And I separated myself from the pack right early on from some key positioning, but also the value proposition when I was offering people. I wanted to be successful. I wanted them to be successful, or we weren't going to play the game. And along the journey, I take these courses, witness, I was very observant of what was cutting edge in the industry. So I somehow found myself aligning with people that were doing strange things. And I always was very inquisitive and asked, why, how's that possible? And if this person can do it, then I can do it, or I can do it my own twist. And so it was a lot of like having a whiteboard, throwing ideas at it, and some of them were crazy and some of them would stick, and and just putting myself out there to whatever scrutiny or even my own inner critic of how can I be leading in the industry? How can I do something different? And how can I impact? I got these people in front of me that in order for them to do these correct behavioral modifications in life to yield the results they want, I wasn't even getting to that part. I got to deal with what was going on between their ears, their internal blocks that they were positioning to say why not just yet.
Yeah.
And
and I have a quick question on that. So
yeah.
So before you even started getting between the ears, you already had probably some like a predisposition to look at some of that stuff because you're a personal trainer. And one of the big things when you're a personal trainer is not just putting somebody through a workout or putting together a diet plan or other stuff like that, but you have to understand a little bit about what motivates them, what makes them tick, what makes them make decisions, period. Because more often than not, you have people coming to you who are not in amazing shape. Like you don't have people showing up and being like, hey, I want to be trained. I have all the muscle mass that I want. And I'm in the perfect shape that I want to be in. I would like a personal trainer. Like that normally doesn't happen. Yeah. Usually it's people who are like, I want to make a change in my life physically, and it's going to have all these different emotional benefits and mental benefits. And you would help them there. So you already had to figure out kind of the mindset side of what makes them tick. And so what was the big switch? Because you already were doing some of that stuff. What do you think was the biggest leap into like the more coaching side of it in terms of fine tuning those things of separating yourself from like a personal trainer to actually being like a business and success coach?
Well, the mentality that I took from the very beginning of my career, I've been doing this for 3 decades. And a phrase that kind of maybe encapsulates that well for your audience is done, one, fun. And for me, that has always been that first conversation with clients. When someone comes in, it's really about getting them to see, and their calculation's usually off, but I ask a simple question like, what part of the work we're going to do here do you think is physical, and what part is mental? Yeah. And they've always got this thing tilted in the wrong direction. And we finally get them through, I give them some physical experiences to like really work through the mental piece to understand it's 100% mental, that you have to make this a decision. We're all, like the way of putting this of, it's where all other choices don't exist. You make a decision that this is the path I'm going down, and I'm burning the boats. Yeah. Like we have to go forward off this crazy cliff into the unknown, into this terrain. And so the idea of like one done fun is the hardest part is the initial, like, I'm going to believe in this thing that's out here, and I'm going to lasso it in and bring it in, and I'm going to believe it and act as if I'm that guy or woman, like that has that creative power and stance and commitment. And so that's a part I work on with folks. And some folks need to stack up a little more evidence to alter their beliefs. They go the opposite way. They go, okay, well, I've had that success, so now I can believe a little further. Yeah. And for me, I love the coaching side from the training side and the techniques and the behavioral modifications. the coaching side is like, hey, if we can just get this conversation going right and have a hard conversation right now, that it takes just as much effort to go big with your dreams as to go, in these micro doses of it.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, and those, so diving into some of those hard conversations. So help me understand, because I've had plenty of hard conversations with myself, and a lot of them, I mean, one of the biggest things that I had to, that was a fear of mine for a very, very, very long time. And this followed me through sports and through a whole bunch of other stuff, because I had some very, very big shoes to fill, having, the parents that I did and the people surrounding me that I did, everybody who was a part of my life that really played a part in it was very successful in a number of different ways. I grew up surrounded by champions. And so for me, my biggest fear was that I would be a participant and not a champion in some way, shape, or form in the work that I did. And that followed me for a very long time. And I had to find a way to not only understand where that came from, but how to change that narrative and understand that I saw these people as champions, right, in the fields that they had. And I had to understand why I saw them as that. Like, what were the qualities? And to me, it was about seeing people who were confident, joy, and passionate in life. They had confidence in all the work that they did. They seemed to be able to walk into a room and walk out with, basically with a check. And they could make,
and they transform the energy of the room.
100%. They walk in and you feel it, right? And then there was this sense of joy in everything that they did. There was just this, the people who I thought were successful were the people who seemed to just have this joy in every single part of life. And then they were passionate. There was this intensity about everything that they did. Didn't matter what they did. There was this fire within them that seemed to come out. And I saw those three things as being really successful. And when I finally defined what I saw as being successful, I was then able to change that for my life. And I was able to say, I don't have to be them, right? I don't have to do what they're doing because they're already doing it. I don't have to walk in their same exact path because mine might be different. I have to be open to whatever path is supposed to be laid out for me, but I can live in being confident, being joyful, and being passionate. I can do those things now. I don't have to be anything in order for those things to come into my life. And so I had to change that for myself. And those were very difficult conversations to have with myself to break those habits that I conditioned for so long. What were some of those hard conversations that you had with your own self as you were going through this journey?
Yeah, great question. And first, I just want to give feedback that my experience of you, Keegan, has been someone who has gotten after it and has reverse engineered these three things, and has figured it out. Has like, I like to put like the old school Batman and Robin when they're trying to figure out the Riddler's riddle. You just like latched on to like these three things. Like, how do I embody these characteristics, and I bestow this to whatever the people and surroundings, activities, whether it's in your family life with your kids, and just anyone you come in contact with. I just want to reflect that back to you, that I experienced that. And it's not just inspiring. It's very, there's a healthy masculine frame that you provide, that it's a really healthy container that you bring forth for others. And that's why I see you, there's already been tremendous success in your career, but I just, just watching you grow and come into this as a father, and into all these things that you have your hands in. It's really exciting I can see where the ripple effect, the impact of your presence in this world is like, you're in alignment with your calling. You're doing your thing. You're leaning all the way into your crazy truth. And like, you know what, this is my crazy, I'm doing this. And a lot of courage, a lot of tenacity. And, it comes from, like, you came from a very loving, warm household, and challenges there, just like all households. I look at, I kind of grew up affluent in the Bay Area. We had that nice neighborhood, nice, view of the Golden Gate Bridge and San Francisco, and everything there is like, $100 million homes and stuff now. but inside the household, two working parents. My father was very involved with the affirmative action department in San Francisco. So he's like the guy who had to look under his car, make sure there wasn't a bomb underneath it, making
Oh,
sure the
wow.
skyscrapers were
Yeah.
going up, but there was equal opportunity hiring. And he'd always come home angry. We had the old school generation of the belt, make a switch. Also the neglect. So I think when I was a kid, I was left with the sitters because both my parents worked. So I was left with sitters that spoke Spanish, but they didn't take time to teach me Spanish. And I was like, what, what's going on here? And so I had a world of that was either very dangerous to navigate, because this is what I experienced. Like, this is how I define a loving home: is dangerous, neglectful, physical abuse, emotional abuse. There was
Your frame of reference.
yeah. And so I was like the little kid who's like, hey, I'm like Cinderella. I'm like waiting for, my real family to show up or something. And though I've mined some incredible wisdom from these experiences, and my parents, they both are extraordinary individuals, that the person I am today is because I came through and chose these folks to really stretch myself. And so through that process of my upbringing, I learned to get a good read, like worrying about getting a spanking or eating a bar of soap. I learned to get a good read on like what's going on for this person. So I developed a superpowers that's helped me become an incredible coach and hold space for whatever the F's going down. I can be with that because I've been through shit. And, at the same time, as an adult and in adult relationships, I went through a relationship that turned toxic, and in the latter stages, and in that process, I had to like discover, oh, in your superpower of showing up for everybody else, you also self-abandon. And so through, it's all those things you kind of escape. You think you've escaped your household and gone off to adulthood, and there's a little child version of you that's like screaming from neglect from yourself. And so coaching for me, as the training evolved into different formats of coaching, became a vehicle for my own personal development and growth, and my eagerness to solve my own riddles, not from a place of like, hey, how do I like have that championship thing, but how am I gonna survive? And once I got surviving down, how am I gonna thrive?
Yeah.
And there's been outside of the household representations of that I've been inquisitive about, but it wasn't really wasn't around me in a form of like repetitions.
Yeah.
It was more like I'd stumble across it and I go, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, is that available to me? Time to hit the books, time to hire the coaches, time to have those experiences. And the value for me from what I've been through was like, I'm investing the whole house in this thing. And so that's, I think has my career path has kind of migrated from one aspect of my own development, and then working with clients who are also, maybe I'm, hopping a skip ahead of them, and they're like, you just went through that. You understand that very well. Like, you're the guy I want to hire to help me with this. I know you can already help me with these other things, but you, like, who the hell else knows how to do this thing? Because I had gone relentlessly into my on my quest of like, as you know, I at a period in my career, I was questioning things. I was burnt out. I even took a couple other gigs to try things out, and then I literally like locked myself up for like 21 days. I'm like, I'm gonna read 21 days and 21 books in 21 days, and that ended up becoming 100 books in 100 days, and then just got out of control from there. But and in that process, you and I got into conversation, and it was something around like, I've been doing life coaching all this time, and what if I like studied one of these courses, and the funny thing is that I went to you, our relationship had evolved throughout the years and dynamics, and the course that you had gone through really resonated with all the spiritual development and work I've been doing. It was like, wow, I'm so shocked that the course that actually like Keegs had gotten after was really like just hitting home with me on so many variables I've been investigating.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I really got to relax into some conversations with you and got coached by you and what was possible. And then I was like, oh man, I'm getting my own spanking right here of like one done fun. And I'm like, I'm back, I'm all in. And I'm doing this like from a full alignment at a soul level to the work I came here to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And that part of our relationship was, it was like this, like you completely hit the nail on the head where our relationship took this path to growth within itself. We developed a very much from a, I looked at you as, this like, I mean, for a long time, I was just like, he's a personal trainer. He's just this really popular guy. He's, and I looked at you as somebody who, if I needed something specific, I would call you, I'd ask you questions, other stuff. And then we became peers and we became very close because there was this level of transparency that our relationship together really took, where there was almost this, and I love using the term, almost this tribal mentality where, and especially today with men, it's oftentimes rare to find men wanting to be very transparent with each other. And you and I created just a space where we felt very comfortable with that. And within that, we were able to have very transparent conversations, very real conversations, very raw conversations. And yeah, there absolutely were a few times where I was just like, I kind of laid it on, and I was just like, I'm just going to tell you what I'm seeing. And the beautiful thing about coaching is, it's like, with sports, you have athletes who are out on the field and they're actually playing the game. And then you have coaches who are on the sideline who can see more than the athlete can out on the field. And they provide information about what they are seeing so that the athlete who is on the field can make better decisions and better play the game given the circumstances that are currently going on. And I was able to be transparent about that information, and the way you received it and the way that you also responded to all of those things was awesome. And I mean, it shows in the work that you have done, the challenges that you have put in front of yourself to push yourself into that gray space, to grow as an individual, which we'll have to talk about rock climbing here in a moment. But you have pushed yourself so much to understand growth comes from the gray space. And when people embrace that gray space that life has to offer, it's where you discover things. It's where you discover yourself. It's where you discover really those true superpowers. And there's two
and it's
things.
messy too, by the way. It's not
100%.
We're
It's
making it
never
sound real
tidy.
like it's just a clean gray.
Yeah, it is 5,000 shades of gray that you walk into and you have no clue what's going to be thrown at you.
Yeah. Ladies got the 50 shades of gray, guys got the 5,000 shades of gray.
Yeah. And we'll get into that another time. There's a joke in there that could have been made. We'll keep it semi PG. Semi. So two things that I definitely want to talk about, because I think you have a really good perspective on these things, is one, the challenge you face with relationships and the work you've done with yourself, with relationships, not only with yourself, but with others. And then the second one being the challenges that you push yourself into, doing things that feel uncomfortable and having leverage over yourself physically, right? To where you can command yourself physically. And when you think of why anybody does anything, or how what I call the ways people influence themselves, they either do it mentally, physically, or emotionally, and they find the lowest barrier to entry and they influence that area, and everything else has to fall in line. And so there are people who are very emotionally intelligent. There are people who are hyper rational. And then there are people who are very hardworking physically. I think you are somebody who can very easily influence yourself physically. And you chose to do something pretty extreme for someone who had never done it before. And I'd love if you could share the story of why you rock climbed the Flatirons and what that experience was like.
You mean like, why did I climb all 3 of them in one day, not being a climber?
Yeah, yeah, and I downplayed that. You chose to climb all 3 in one day, and you were not a rock climber. Like, first off, what was the inspiration for it, and where did it go from there, and how did it develop?
Yeah, it goes back to what I was mentioning earlier about where I picked these few weeks to read a bunch of books on my bookshelves that had been hanging there for a long time, and I just was like popping them out, pulling these books out of order, and saying, okay, I'm going to read these books in this order. And then the game started morphing and changing. I'd switch books up. I order a few new books online and reprioritize. And then next thing you know, the book list kept growing, and I still was committed to that mission. And I was using these books to kind of work through my own psychobabble in my head. I wanted to not be influenced by others, but I wanted to be able to hear other perspectives. Because sometimes when you get opinions from people in this day and age, people don't understand about, coaching is not necessarily about advising someone. It's about teaching you difference from training. Training is like, hey, follow me. Maybe you're an idiot and right now, and I'm gonna show you what to do. And then from here, you're gonna be able to think more intelligently. But coaching is more about like, you have everything within you, and I'm here to like shine the light and reflect that. So you start seeing your light and you start seeing your path. And the more you be you, I don't want you to be a mini version of me. You try to follow, it's almost, I always tell people, it's like I got a Mac and you got a PC and you're saying just click left, and I'm like, no, it's the right, click right. And everybody's got a different operating system and different data points. And so I wanted to just, having been in men's groups and leading men's groups and doing a number of, I've done, back in the days, they led corporate wellness programs and boot camps and done everything under the sun in my industry. And now I was having to, what was reflected to me was, Glenn, use your tools. Use what you learned and taught others for many years. And I had this kind of vision of kind of like the butterfly. Most people think the caterpillar goes in and then grows some wings, and then it's, off to la la land, like, oh, life is a butterfly. Yeah. But really, like that caterpillar gets melted down in that cocoon into something new. It really gets transformed. And I wanted to put myself through my own gauntlet, through my own crucible, multiple crucibles, where I could shed and have to fight my way out with something new, or something that I was holding out on for the ideal time, opportunity. And so I brought forth my coaching skills to myself, read and listened to books, saturated myself to where there were these common patterns that started to show up. And I needed to get freaking leverage on myself. And so I called up a guide. I'm like, hey, do you guide people up the Flatirons and everything? I'm like, yeah, we can do that for you. I'm like, well, have you ever had anybody do like 2 of them or like three of them? He's like, you experienced climber? Sure. But can someone do like 3 of these in a day? He's like, yeah, we can do that. And I'm like, let's get it on the calendar. So
having like no climbing experiences
and not climbing to like train for this or condition for this, just all mental, just all like, I need to put myself through something so something else can come in.
Yeah. And
I met this guy that day, 6 a.m, like kind of a shadowy face with a helmet light on, throws, I got my climbing shoes in my bag, my hike, like, I don't know, gym shoes, and not dressed warm enough, whatever. Middle of winter, it was like November here in Colorado.
Yeah.
There was like ice and snow everywhere. Like, we're not doing this in like this gorgeous weather happening right now. And I can't keep up with this guy. He's like, follow me, like I was back in the day. It's like, just follow me. And he's hiking, at just top speed, because like time is of the essence. He's like, to get all 3 done in a day before dark, we're starting at dark and we got to finish before dark.
Yep.
He's like, we got to move. So we hiked all the way out to the 3rd Flatiron, and I'm exhausted just getting up to the spot. We had to hike a chunk, and actually we ended up hiking about 10 miles, hiking around these things that day on top of everything. So 10 miles of hiking, zigzagging through the Flatirons. But when we get to the first one, he just takes off and like lays all the trad, and he's like, I'll see you at the top. I'll see you at the next spot, you know, and I'll see you at the first pitch. And we did about 50 of these pitches, by the way, that day. So he takes out, he's like, you know, he's like, when's the last time you were climbing? I'm like, it's been a while.
Yesterday.
And he's like, well, just take a little, give yourself about like 10 or 15 minutes to just get your sea legs and everything. And I'm like, sea legs. What does he mean by that? You know?
Yeah, as you get ready to climb a mountain.
Yeah, Keegan, I get on this rock and there's nowhere to grab. It's like, it's just like glass, like climbing up a skyrise. Like it's just like glass slightly tilted. There's nowhere to grab. And I'm yelling up to the guy like, hey, if there's nothing to grab onto, like, what's the best way you like to do this? You know, and he's like, just stick your butt out. It'll put weight into your feet and your hands. And I stick my butt out. And again, it's like 15 minutes of in my head. Who did I tell I was doing this?
Yeah, just
like I shouldn't have told anyone I was doing this. And
in case you don't come back.
Yeah. And we get up about I don't know, I get up to, I think it's about half hour, and like I'm just like there, like just stuck to the rock going like, I don't know how to do this. I'm like, well, and you're already in a spot that's already way high up by the where we started. It's like the trail led you up to good enough altitude. And anyways, finally, like I just like started moving, and by it was just a miracle, because it was literally like, hey, come on back down. I was like, I started scurrying up this rock where there's nowhere to grab, and got all the way up to where he was. And he was like, I was really worried about you there for a moment, but like, he's like, you're doing incredible. And I sat down, and as my ego began to lift, the main piece of the device that you have to take off and to switch the ropes up to clip in onto the side of my harness, I guess I missed it, because we were both looking, we see this thing go up in the air and then goes over the trees. And then, I looked down, I'm like, I could have swore I clipped that in. I'm like, is that important? And he's like, he turned to me nonchalant and he hands me another one. He's like, this is the last one I got. And I had just gone from like, I did it, to like, we're just getting started the whole day, and I just lost the main piece, like that you need. And anyways, it was an adventure where, you know, I climbed the first Flatiron, and then, you know, he lowered me off the backside while telling me horror stories of, you know, someone had fallen, you know, they didn't have enough long enough rope, you know, the week before or something. And he had just been on another climb the day before somewhere else, and he saw someone fall to death, and he was the first on the scene. He's telling me all these really time to tell him you haven't done this.
Yeah, these things that would clearly make any rookie climber be like, I can't wait to keep climbing. As he's just like, yeah, I mean, people are dying on me all the time. You're like, oh, well, you might have another one on your hands today. You keep telling me these stories.
And then I just remember him lowering me off the backside of the first one. We're on the third Flatiron, going in reverse order, but just hanging there, you know, 100 feet up, you know, and just, you know, it was gut wrenching when you just kind of got to let go of this perfectly good place you're standing and get lowered off. And yeah, we went and did the second Flatiron after hiking around, and you know, there's some young college girl, no ropes, just in regular sneakers, just cruising by. She was cute. She said she's, you know, talked to her for a few minutes as she just boogied up. She's like, oh yeah, I heard about this, decided to do this. And I'm like, that's even dumber than me. And I felt good. I'm like, at least I'm using ropes, and I got a guide. And
was she free climbing it?
Yeah.
Oh.
And people fall to their death all the time.
Yeah. I've never sweat more while watching something than watching free solo.
Oh yeah.
It's absolutely nuts, the stuff that some people do. And I mean, the fact that you did it, right? So you finish.
And let me tell you just a little bit about the finish there.
Yes, please.
Just the last little tidbit, just because you can laugh at my pain. We're on the final, the first Flatiron, the big mamma jamma for the end of the day. And food's gone, water's gone, darkness has dropped upon us. Still same method. He's like, see you in a bit. I'm like, okay. And as he left we're get up on this one ridge. By now my toes are all black, like they're black and blue. Like the temperature has dropped, it's freezing. Every time my toes would touch the wall, it hurt like hell. And there's some technical stuff now that's really hard to do, where I've literally got to jump and try to get a pinky on a little sliver to catch, and then throw my foot up with, okay, my flexibility wasn't that great at the time, and hook my heel up there, and then with the other hand jump up on top of this ridge. And my guide had taken off. The wind, it's 35 miles per hour wind, it's howling, it's really loud. And I tried a couple of times to get it, I couldn't get it. And this is the part that people might say I made up, but this is how it went down. There was out of nowhere, I saw a guy walking up the rock, like just walking like sideways, slanted up this like terrain, like not ropes or anything, but like in shorts and a t-shirt. And he pauses and looks at me from afar, and he lights a spleef and nods at me, and then disappears again into the night air. And then somehow I like one more, and I jumped up, I got this thing, and I got over the crux of this next pitch, and into the howling wind. It took everything at this point. I mean, I'm exhausted, all the variables, the night, it just changes everything very fast. And I started to have to I had to motivate myself out loud. Now I figured I was covered because of the wind noise. So it was like, you stupid mother, you had to do this. Like, why are you like risking like this death-defying, feat, how to put yourself through something. And I'm having this whole conversation out loud, that, yelling at myself. And I get to where my guide is in this little kind of crevice, protected from the wind. And I show up and he's laughing hysterically. And I'm like, what's so funny? And he's like, I can hear every single thing you've been saying.
I just heard that existential crisis you just had.
Yeah. It's completely aired, and then obviously onward and upward we went. But the finish was, it was beautiful in the moonlight, as we got down into the, the canyon, and just in Chautauqua, where you look back and you go, oh, I've been looking at these things since I was here in 2003. I did this thing, this knucklehead thing, that was, maybe most people would say it was like physical. I tell you, that was a very emotional, mental day.
Isn't it funny how everybody looks at something and thinks it's physical, when in most cases, when they see something being done, because you're witnessing something that immediately you go to your body, and you're just like, you watch sports, right? And people are just like, I could do that. Like every couch quarterback, every every sofa Michael Jordan, they're like, oh, how could you this, because they only think about the physical part of it. And they don't realize that the physical part of it is the least of anything you will ever do. But for some people, the physical step can be the absolute hardest one to take for a lot of people, which is just doing something. But even just to get there, it's an emotional and mental journey for a lot of people. And it can be very, very difficult. And so it's an amazing story, and it's a great one that you'll be able to have forever and be able to tell. And you'll always have those memories and those experiences, and you put yourself into a position where you just committed, and you went into something that you had no clue how it was going to pan out, and you wound up getting through it, and it was challenging as all hell. And you realized at the end, it was an emotional and mental journey along the entire way. It's absolutely amazing. And before we move on to some of the relationship things, I have to ask a question. So when it comes to doing stuff, like you when you committed, like you took that step, you made it real for yourself, and then you actually went and you showed up and you did it, and you're like, I can't cop out now. Like I got to go for it. Some people have trouble getting to that point.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, what what are some of the ways that you motivate yourself to actually commit to something and begin doing that you think help a lot of people who don't have a lot of experience or potential mastery over themselves, like other people might, with all that practice with it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it goes back, the answer goes back to what you had shared earlier, which is I wanted to reverse engineer confidence, joy, find fire again, like light that fire again. How am I going to do that? I need to put myself, men are forged in hard work, whether it's in the gym, in business, and showing up as a father, or in leading your family. This is what we're built for. That's why we're looked upon for our strength. And our strength comes from, we got to put in work, and we gotta, for me, I was looking for fire. I came off the mountain, kind of like Moses. I came off the mountain with fire. I'd been exposed, and I did that. I did this recently. I was up in Kremlin, and it was like white squall coming in, snowstorm, and around 12 to 1 o'clock, good old Glenn's like, time to put the sneakers on. Time to go for a run and build some character, and I parked out at this gate. I had a big, gallon of water, and I went to the gate. Gate's locked. I'm like, well, I'm gonna go past the gate here, and no one's gonna know I'm here. And I'm gonna run to the top of this flat top. Got a good 5-mile run, and just as soon as I passed the gate, it was all the way up to my hips and like deep snow, howling wind. And my head's still going, what the F am I doing out here? Like, this is numbskull shit.
Mm-hmm.
This is some real warrior shit. I'm going out to create pain and agony. I'm not going out for a pleasurable workout. I'm going out to suffer. And I think that's where people have it backwards. They're like, oh, I've gotten so much better and more comfortable at this workout in the gym. I got the same routine now. This has gotten easier. It's like, well, now go find your new heart and put that aside. And most people don't do that. Yeah. And but I'm saying most, there's a lot of us out there that have this mentality. Yeah. That we seek fire, joy, and confidence through our accomplishing insurmountable feats.
Yeah, absolutely. And that switch from like pain versus pleasure to pain leads to pleasure.
Yes.
Right? Like that switch can be, it's not one that you're ever going to, like, you don't know when the pleasure actually hits, because you're always kind of searching for that challenge, that pain. And a lot of people, we're not conditioned as men. There's kind of this unspoken, you forge yourself in hard work. That's just what you do. But nobody, like, everything within you tells you don't go and do that. Like, self-preservation is always trying to kick in and say, don't go out and don't go do this stuff. And even when you're always pushing yourself, you're always challenging yourself, you're always kind of causing a little bit of pain. Like, the pleasure may have already hit your life and you don't even realize that it's there, but other people will. They'll think, oh my gosh, you're so successful, you're happy, you're all these other things. But you're kind of lost in this cycle of, I'm constantly trying to challenge myself. Like, I know if I sit in the pleasure, like, then the pleasure it'll be gone before I know it. And so, like, how do you balance that in your life when it comes to constantly challenging yourself, but still recognizing wins along the way and celebrating those things?
I think there's a really great example that's out there today that's become popular, which is like the Wim Hof method. It's like, just kind of back to, I remember my dad back in the days, like, take a cold shower at the end before you get out. Mm-hmm. I was like, why? It's like, why would I get out of the cozy hot water? Yeah, I think, I don't know, pleasure, too much pleasure. For me, I feel like pleasure is for a woman sometimes, and meaning that that for us men, what was the phrase? It's something like if it's wrapped in pleasure, it's gonna cause you pain. Kind of like eating a pizza. It's gonna be good going down, and then you're gonna feel like fat and bloated and disgusting and lethargic and unmotivated and all that, and then you go to a workout, and if it's wrapped in pain, there's pleasure after that. There's like a sense for me as a man, I'm speaking for it. So the feeling is just a sense of like, I've put myself through the rigors. I've challenged myself. I stretched myself. That pleasure afterward, like the reward, that feeling when you get out of the gym and you've had a hard workout. When I've done sweat lodges and you got 4 buckets of water and you have to crawl out of this thing and you can barely stand up. It's like you put in work to get to that sweet calmness and groundedness and availability for others. It's like, oh, I'm now someone who can hold space for others. I'm present with my stuff. I can hold space for you with what's going on with you. But until I do that work, and I try to do this stuff on a daily basis. I try to make sure that I'm competing with the yesterday version of me, like the pleasure goes up kind of in relationship to like the pain I've endured.
Yep.
I've found somewhere early on in life that I'm not controlled by the weather. So I plan on going for a run, whether it's going to be great weather, rainy, icy, dangerous, black ice to run. And I'm like, okay, new challenge, like in doing these activities, I maintain my youth and my athleticism. And if I stop doing these things, I'm actually sending a message to myself to, instead of become stronger, but become weaker by just doing a little less, and talking myself into, well, I'm just getting older. I should, you look right now, Keegan, nowadays, like my generation, anybody that was like in their 40s and 50s were pretty, sloppy old people. They're just like aged way before their time. You can see now guys in their 70s and 80s that look like jack 20-year-olds that are out doing stuff and living life to the fullest. And like, I want that possibility to live into for myself. And I don't think they're like got their pleasure ratio too far out of whack in the sense of like eating ice cream or entertainments or, sitting around on the computer. And, I go walk my dog. I take my dog for a walk, but I take myself out for a run.
Mm-hmm.
If I go for a hike, I want to hike it hard and hike it high. So like versus like, let's go for a short hike and then let's go out for a big giant, 4,000 calorie, brunch, which is, ruins the whole effort there a little bit.
Yeah. You brought up a really good point, which is you compete with the person who you were yesterday, which is so important for a lot of people to understand, because in today's society where everywhere you look, people are showing off their best version of themselves, whether it's social media, whether it's TV, whether it's anything, right? Even when you go out, like people are always showing off their best version of themselves. And everybody always, as just the human conscious does nowadays, is it compares. Where am I versus what I'm seeing? Right? Do I like what I see? Am I better than what I see? Am I less than what I see? Your brain is always trying to benchmark. And when people can make that shift to benchmarking themselves versus external things, to benchmarking themselves versus internal things, life completely changes. Because when you can benchmark yourself versus the person who you were yesterday or the person you were an hour ago or a minute ago, any of those other things, you will always push yourself to play the long game, realizing that there is like quick wins. They come quick, they go quick. And when you push yourself to have long-term mastery, to push yourself into a position where you can have long-term success and health and all these other things, and just compete with the person who you were yesterday, life becomes filled with a lot more joy, with a lot less judgment, with a lot more fulfillment. And it's a beautiful thing to dive into relationships here, because you've had, from whether it's external relationships or relationships with yourself or you talked earlier about familial relationships. Like, what is your journey with relationships been in terms of how it was? Because we talked about kind of your benchmark of what you knew growing up, kind of the conditioning you had. versus like, what do you believe about relationships now? And what was the big shift that helped you get there?
Yeah, I think as I've gotten older and gone through, I've had a number of relationships, and client relationships, and coach mentors where I've been on both sides of the equation. I feel like relationships, as I've awakened to what's possible, are opportunities to turn inward when, I guess in our society nowadays, there's still a lot of pointing the finger at people for causing your emotions to be a certain way. And the emotions that you've probably had before you've met this person or been in interaction with this person, you've had these emotions before. And these emotions will continue to visit you for the rest of your life. And the emotions are occurring here, over here inside you, not out there. And what I've discovered in the recent years, that when we experience an agitation within us, we can easily run to try to manipulate the outside world, another, or circumstances. And it's an opportunity to actually counterintuitively turn and look and say, what is it I don't want to feel right now? And, for me, I think in the start of this awareness and this process, it used to be just something simple as like, I'm picking up my phone to F around with my phone right now. Why? Oh, because there's some kind of discomforting sensation going on in my body that wants to distract and not be present. And it was like I had to put my phone down and be inquisitive and ask what's going on in that hidden pocket inside me that might have some wisdom for me, and is trying to maybe there's higher intelligence coming from my subconscious than what I'm busy doing right now, what I'm busy thinking I should be doing and choosing. There's all this historical data in my subconscious that's trying to give me a hit of oh, what's my gut telling me right now? What's my heart telling me? Get out of your head. And so as I've matured over the last, I'm now going to be turning 49, Keegan, in June. As I've gotten older, I've become more fascinated with myself and what percolates and starts popping up inside me, and taking full responsibility of that and exploring that, while also, if I'm in relationship with others, how to articulate these things in a healthier way that creates a healthier dynamic with others. So in a way that allows you to feel safe being you in your unique way and learning your unique lessons at your unique pace. That my accepting of me allows you to accept you. And probably the biggest gifts, I think maybe stands out with my clients is I'm here to love up on them in the areas they're very critical with themselves, that they're having a hard time being with. And at the same parallel of that, I'm also there to believe in them and what has not come in yet, that their heart wants to create. And I'm let's go for it. Let's do this. And I've experienced that with my coaches when they coach me. And it's such a gift to be with someone that can love up on you and where you're struggling, where you're challenged, that they're not triggered and they're good with you being with that. And it's oh, they're giving me permission to be to tone down that inner critic. Yes. And they're also, that coach is giving me the opportunity to go somewhere never been before. So I think as all it's a blessing to work with a coach. But would it be great, if the world just operated this way, that we showed up as that coaching was taught in our schools. And there's a beautiful, just real fast, there's a beautiful movie. It wasn't my generation, but I think yours, the Compass, the Golden Compass, I think it was called, where everybody has an animal that walks around with them. So you have a lion next to you, or an elephant or a horse, but that the animal's with you. So when you come upon someone, it's your intuition is online. It's hey, I don't know about trusting this person, or hey, we should be cautious here. I feel like that's kind of like what coaching is. It's like someone to help you like not react and get a hit of your inner, your deepest intelligence. And then you can tap into your higher self. I'm sure, with your work with high level athletes and business folks, it's, you got to get in there with precision quickly, and help them solve their stuff. I'm not here to be, I'm the expert at like extrapolating one's own insights and then getting them to execute on that, kind of like me getting the guide and doing the daredevil mountain that we all, we all want to get on our adventure, and we got to do our crazy thing. And it's, it can go bad, but doing what we're doing the lukewarm, good enough. There's so many people are unhappy right now doing good enough or barely good enough, and then they're kind of anesthetizing themselves. They're watching the Netflix show, they're living vicariously that Viking show, or
Yeah, they watch something and in their mind they're like, oh, I should like they see, they go and watch any Avengers movie and they see like Chris Hemsworth as Thor and they're just like, man, I should go hit the gym, right? And then they watch another 5 hours of shows and other stuff. And I mean, it can happen, but you brought up a really good point. And I think this is a beautiful place to also roll out a little bit of a red carpet and hear a little bit more about what you're working on right now and how people can follow you. But you had mentioned, and I think it's an amazing note to sit there and be able to say your acceptance of yourself allows other people to be accepting of themselves. And what a beautiful concept where, because we live in this society where people try and compliment each other and hype each other up and all this other stuff. But and then they turn around and they hate themselves. And so they require to have other people give them confidence and give them words of affirmation and all this other stuff so that they can feel good about themselves. But there's so much power that comes when you simply accept the person who you are and you're comfortable with it and you're happy with it and you're joyful with it and you're just like, and you're playful with the fact that you just are who you are. And there's never been anything wrong with it. And there's nothing like as messed up as some people can put themselves in a weird situation with, or however great and successful people might be in certain areas. Like if you're accepting of all of it, all of your flaws, all the good decisions, all the bad decisions, and you remove those labels and just say all decisions, if you can accept everything that has happened in your world and you just love it and you just love yourself no matter what, it's amazing what can happen when somebody else notices that, when they see how much you're accepting of yourself and how much you're loving of yourself. I think it's an absolutely beautiful sentiment to be able to transition over into. I want to ask, so as we kind of bring, and obviously I'd love to dive into some other stuff at some point with you, because there's just so much stuff that's there that we can obviously talk forever. So, but one thing I'd like to kind of end this on is understanding maybe one thing that you're working on right now that's interesting for people to potentially either get involved with or learn a little bit more about, and where people can find you and just kind of follow your journey and your story and just learn more about you.
Great. Well, GlennHattem.com is my website. So you can go to, that's probably, now you won't be able to find me because you're like, how do you spell that? So it's Glenn with 2 N's. And then it's HATTEM as in Mary.com. So GlennHattem.com. Currently working on a couple different projects. I run a 90-day Amplify Your Life program for men and women, business women, men and women and their families. I help them get unstuck, get empowered, transform their lives. Everybody's got different things going on at different paces. And it's for me, that's my pleasure. The work, the being in the fire, helping people find that. I'm currently, like yourself, I've kind of jumped into the online presence world and developed a little series called The Coachable Coach. So where I'm on interviews with folks like yourself, people that I'm being coached by, And just like I go through a number of different power sessions and share kind of the nuggets of what by putting myself through the fire, what I've learned from those hard pushes, those vulnerable spots I put myself with my coaches. And I thought it would just be really helpful for, first for my audience that I work with, on just showing them, hey, if I can be coachable and I can go through the rigors and do this, you can do it too. And it's messy. Like, it's not just, here are my goals, here's where I'm at, let's jump from one fishbowl to the next. I try to show people, showcase what it's like to start off and embrace sucking at something. And when the camera's rolling, what's really going on, what's the truth, I love this phrase, you can't get to where you want to get to from where you're not. Meaning, like, if I wanted to drive down in South Denver, but I put in I'm starting from Alaska, I'm never going to get there. I'm come from Boulder. And all of us, in my experience, is sooner we can not lie to ourselves and not lie to the world, we can actually establish a true starting point of where you're at. Now, maybe didn't work so well when I did my to the guide. I told them the experienced climber, that example. But in any case, getting honest with where you're at in life, and where you want to be, who you want to become, or remember, or a part you want to remember about yourself again. That's you can tune in. There's just free episodes of the Coachable Coach series. It's also on my Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, kind of like yourself. You're doing some really extraordinary interviews these days, and lots of great nuggets that come from what you're doing, Keegan. And I'm always listening in and jotting notes. And so, hopefully there's someone walks away from this with just like one really good note to self, and it's on a sticky note, on their car and on their mirror and on their kid's forehead, whatever it is.
There have been lots and lots and lots of moments in this with incredible information, and it was fun. I mean, I'm so glad that, like I said, I was able to finally, we were able to set up time and have this going. But I mean, this is the first of many conversations that we'll probably have in this format. And
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And for anybody out there, once again, go find Glenn. He's on social media. Go check out his website, learn a little bit more about some of his programs, some of the things he's working on. But Glenn, I can't thank you enough for being on here, man. And this has been an absolute pleasure. And I mean, here's to your success.
To you as well, brother. And thank you. I appreciate you. And thank you for today. And thank you guys for listening. Hopefully it was entertaining. So you take a few notes.